Let's bring Bobby Marks into the conversation here. Bobby, I'm curious, you are the voice of reason here. Who is your biggest winner from today?
For me, it's Dallas. And I heard Jason Kidd say something about a week ago that you have to do everything possible when you have a player like Luka Doncic on your roster as far as finding the most talent to surround him. And I know there was 2 first-round picks that went out, but when you get Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington in a trade and that upgrades your roster, I look at Dallas as one of the big winners today. And I think certainly another team is Oklahoma City. You know, getting Gordon Hayward in a trade, trading out 3 players that weren't part of their rotation. Hayward helps. It opens up, certainly a potential max slot this offseason to go out and get a player before those Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams extension starts in a couple more years. And then the third, I like what Charlotte did. They kind of know who they are. They embraced rebuilding. They made the Terry Rozier trade a few weeks ago. They got a first-round pick in 2027. And then they went out and did the P.J. Washington trade, and you get another first-round pick here. They did the Hayward trade, and they got 2 seconds back also. So I like what Charlotte did. It's not going to win the headlines, but they know who they are. They've embraced rebuilding, and they have more of an identity than some of the teams that did not do a deal today.
Okay, so that's the biggest winner. We've talked about the Knicks. Now we're talking about Dallas. What about biggest loser today, Bobby?
Well, I don't know about losers. I mean, it's kind of, where Detroit is. I think they were a year late with the Bogdanovic and the Alec Burks trade as far as where they could have moved them last year and maybe got more value. And I know Quentin Grimes is certainly a nice player, but you flip both players for 2 second-round picks. And then for me, it's Atlanta and Chicago. It's kind of pick a direction. You're sitting at 9 and 10 right now. For Chicago, you're faced with the DeMar DeRozan situation. I know the goal is to stay competitive, and hopefully you can get into the 8 seed here. And then Atlanta, certainly the DeJounte Murray. And I know it takes a trade partner out there to move that deal, and you gave up a lot to get him. And I think that's certainly that you're going to look at, certainly in the offseason here. So I don't want to say losers, but more of kind of just an incomplete as far as what those 3 teams did.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly what Shanae was saying earlier. Pick a lane, especially for Chicago. Bobby, thank you so very much. Your biggest loser today?
I would say what Bobby said. Pick a lane, right? I love teams that make a decision like, it's hard, we got to scrap it. Chicago, you learn from what Toronto's mistake was with Van Vliet, and they were like, we're not going to make that same mistake. We can talk about Detroit, they moved those players, but you moved them too late. When you move too late in this business, you lower the value. Even though Bogdanovic was playing great, everyone's talking about how great the Knicks look. Ain't nobody talking about what Detroit got in return. So when you look at some of these teams, if you hold on too long, that's when mistakes happen. You have to make sure that you do not jump the gun. But Atlanta, Atlanta made that conference finals run multiple years ago, and ever since then, and if you're going to try and reference the Golden State Warriors, we're going to have an issue. My thing is this, Atlanta, Trae Young is a great piece. DeJounte Murray doesn't fit. Even if you try to trade DeJounte Murray someplace else. Chicago, it's an absolute dumpster fire. No free agent would go there. You'd have to overpay to get a good player. Now you're talking about bad contracts that you possibly can't move in the future. You had too many players that had value right now that could have put you in a position to go get some players this summer. You're not going to get anything done this year. You're not going to upset and sneak into the 8 and upset the 1 and 2 unless one of the main guys get injured. So Chicago, to me, were the biggest losers, and I think Atlanta right there. They still have. I think Atlanta's in a better position than Chicago. That's the only reason why they're not top of the list.
Why you look so sad, Perk?
Because he knew what I was going to say.
No, I'm just saying when he's talking about holding on and it's too late, it's the same thing we just been preaching all for the last 2-3 weeks about Golden State Warriors, and nobody want to say nothing. When I said
none of those teams have a Steph Curry, bro.
When I said about stopping the bleeding, and I said moving on.
None of those teams won a championship 2 years ago.
The great Bob Myers came on, the guy that actually helped build that dynasty, and he actually said that it's hard when the dynasty is ending. It never ends right? So it's ending. It's always going to add on bad terms. But at the end of the day, look, when it comes down to the losers, it's the front office. It's Rob Pelinka, because we don't know what LeBron James is thinking. That's the problem. No matter how many subliminal messages he's put out there on social media, whatever the case may be, we don't know what he's thinking. So I feel like the Lakers are in a tough spot when it comes to Bron. Now, he's going to go out there and be a true professional, but we just don't know what he's going to do this offseason.